Hello and welcome to BusyWorksBeats.com. Here is your course on how to become a loop maker or a sample maker in the music producer community. So I'm going to go through a lot of stuff today. Here's what we're going to cover today. I'm going to show you guys how to record over existing material, how to record over drum breaks, how to build with your rhythm first. I'm going to go over a couple scales and modes and moods that you guys can generate. Sound selection, we're going to talk about ear candy, how to time stretch in a very particular way for like the newer style stuff, which is deeper than just time stretch. Labeling your files, like 32-bit, et cetera, et cetera. I'm at 40. We'll get to it. And then, using impulse responses, re-recording, your speakers into your DAW, different things. So textures, drill, trap, dark piano, piano, pain, soul, West Coast, trap, and then how to go about sending your loops off. So if that interests you, we're going to cover all that. So I will try to do this within 30 minutes, but who knows how long this will take. I have no idea. Okay, firstly, if you guys struggle with making loops, record over something that already exists, whether it's a loop, whether it's a song, just use it as the structure to build around. So here we have a beat that I made some time ago. The first thing I need to do is figure out what BPM it is. So I'm going to right click the tempo, tap the tempo, and just kind of click it every time I hear that downbeat, kick. So it should be at 62 BPM. Now I'm going to double check by turning on the metronome. And if it lines up perfectly, then I know that I'm in the ballpark. Okay, so we're at 62 BPM. Now I got to figure out the key. So let's open up the channel rack here. Let's go to all. And I'm going to open up a plugin that I bought. It's called Scalar 2. You guys can get this pretty affordable. I think it's like $50 last time I bought it. So here we're going to use this, and it's worth the price. What this does, basically you hit keys and then hit record. Okay, so it tells you the key, we're in F minor. That's the scale. So let's double check. Oops, messed that up already. Okay, so ask yourselves, do those notes sound right with the key, with the sample? And the answer is yes. So we're in the key of F minor. The key is F, the scale is minor. Okay, so that is how we're gonna build over top this track. We're gonna write in F minor. We could always change it, but now that we know those basic things and we're at 62 BPM, now I can go to my keyboard, for example, and start adding stuff. Now I'm just gonna do it through the keyboard to show you guys like how I would do it, because I wouldn't always run to plugins. Plugins, here's the biggest issue that I see people have is they're like, why don't my sounds sound right over the sample? This sample has very organic sounds, meaning like, some kind of bell, some kind of live bass. It does have a synthesizer. It has bells, okay? And it has hard-hitting drums. So those are all organic sounds for the most part. Okay, and an acoustic snare. So if I introduce a lot of synthetic sounds that come from the 80s and it sounds like a video game, it's not going to match with the aesthetic of that thing. So the majority of the time when you guys' loops sound fake and thin, it's because you're trying to add synthetic digital sounds over top of organic sounds. So look for more organic sounds. Look at Kontakt Library Banks. Look at anything with real sampled instruments. Nexus is good. Roland Cloud is good. For Xenology, there's just so many. The SRX series from Roland is really good for real instruments. Okay, you want real instruments to go over top this stuff. Omnisphere, if you could afford it. Trillion. Okay, so if I start adding like GMS over this, it's not going to sound right. It's going to sound out of place. Say that's what most people do, and that's why their stuff doesn't sound authentic. Now that we know we're in F minor, I'm going to load up a grand piano. So when you guys struggle with melody and scales, try starting with stringed instruments. Your piano, I got to take a deep breath. Your piano, your guitar, your bass, stringed instruments, violins, anything that's string based. Start with that. Okay, so now I'm going to go to a grand piano and play F minor. Now I'm just going to freestyle. Melody comes in 4 layers, okay? You have the top line layer, you have the harmony section, you have the contrast section, and then you have the rhythm section. So we have to ask ourselves, what are we adding to this track? What does the track already have? It has the top line from that bell. It has the contrast layer with the bass. What it doesn't have is a harmony section, and it doesn't have a rhythm section outside of the drums. So we could add rhythm and harmony to this. And once you guys start thinking in those 4 components, you will make your stuff a lot faster. So let's record. I'm just going to freestyle some chords. I'm just playing F minor, just spread out. Playing to match the tone of the song. I'm not playing super aggressive. Okay, so I'm not playing this like predictable thing unless the song requires that. I'm just playing like this atmospheric harmony, and it changes up over time. I might change the octave, I might add in some color tones from the scale. So you guys got to think less restrictive, and this is what you do when you use real keyboards like this. For example, I'm using a Korg Kronos. That's what happens when you play a real instrument. You play stuff differently because you're playing it by hand and you make mistakes or you do stuff on purpose on the fly. When you're typing in notes, you just copy and paste, so you don't allow for all these little tiny changes to happen. And it's just little things like that that kind of make you guys stuff sound basic. So let's hit Control L. So if I wanted to take this to the highest degree, I would go through like how to make this sound like it's in the background. I'll give you guys a couple things, but we're not gonna like go too hard about samples right now because we could go all the way in. So this is on the wrong track. So what I need to do here is figure out a way to blend the piano in. I could just simply turn it down and make it feel like it's in the background, but I want to stylize it to fit this vibe. So first thing I'm gonna do is actually, I think we can go to the pre-computed effects. Let's go to stereo delay. And now it creates a left-right transient for the sample. Also, I'm going to add Fruity Delay 3. We're going to turn the wet level all the way up and then mess with the feedback level, turn that all the way down, and delay time all the way down, turn time mod up. Let's also hit it with Fruity Reverb too. So now I'm adding a pitch wobble and I'm pushing the piano to the back with those early reflections on the piano. So we're adding all the fine little things to give it a vibe. We're not using long tail reverb, we're using what's called early reflections, which is going to push the sound to the back. So if I pull the dry level back and turn the early reflections up, we get a pushed back piano sound. So that's the sonic element of trying to make that fit into that specific sample. We could spend literally a day on how to go over that and make that super finesse, but to give you guys the most value, we got to move on to the next thing. So the next concept is writing over drum breaks. So I recommend you guys go to Reddit and just stack up a bunch of drum breaks. There's no like magical one. This one's called Downtown Pack. We're going to turn the tempo to 91 and we're going to build over this one here. Okay, let's drag it in. So I know this one kind of changes at the halfway mark. So I'm going to cut the remainder and just copy and paste. Control B in FL Studio is copy. I don't know why this is not working. Highlight. Okay, so for whatever reason, FL's glitching. So it's Control B does a latch paste. So it pastes wherever it ends. Yeah, something's up with FL. So let's just turn this down. We're going to turn the volume down. Okay, we're going to build synths and ideas around this drum break. The reason this is important is because it gives us a groove to write to. When you're writing music, what will happen is that you'll create a groove. And for the people who are writing drums to your music, it becomes harder because they have like your groove can change per bar and the timing of your notes can change. And so to add drums, to make the drums not feel offbeat, they have to like make all these little small changes. So that's why sometimes it's best to write to a drum rhythm and build your melodies around that so that the people who are trying to build drums to your melodies can actually build drums that match your melody without making it super complicated. So drum breaks are a way to do this for acoustic style, old school hip hop. But for more modern, I would recommend super quantized drums because you don't want people struggling to add drums to your loop. Okay, so let's just add some stuff here. Again, we're going to start with grand piano, stringed instruments, guitar, etc. All right, so as you may have heard as I was recording that, in the beginning, I was playing long, elongated notes. Towards the end, I was playing really bouncy because, again, when you're recording to drums, your melodies are going to wrap around the drum timing. Okay, so when you guys understand this, you'll understand how this translates to the end user. Because now, when they make their melodies and they don't hear your drums, they're gonna feel the bounce in the melody and the short staccato notes, and then they'll pick bouncier drums. So this all correlates back to the end user. Very important that we understand the producer's perspective when making our loops. Okay, another thing is we want to make sure we cut the loops at the end unless you have a real need to have a long tail at the end. Because the biggest issue I see with guys making loops is they'll render it. Like I'll show you guys what happens. They'll render this loop. So let's say we just want this, melody. We can right click, consolidate track from track start. Most people forget to go here to where it says tail. We want to make sure the tail says cut remainder because we don't want the sample to drag beyond the 16 bar mark. If you put leave remainder, if our sound has a reverb on it or any kind of effect that keeps going, it will still render all the effect and it will leave this tail, which makes it really hard for producers to drag and drop this stuff into their production because then they have to figure out how many bars is it. If they're at a different tempo, they have to like match it up. It makes it very complicated. So make sure you guys cut remainder for the majority of what you guys create. I don't know anybody who prefers MP3 loops. So Wave 32-bit float stereo loops. We're gonna have the quality here on 512 point sync. Let me make sure I'm keeping track of where I'm at because I don't want to cover too much stuff. Okay. 512 point sync and then high quality for all plugins, and just copy my settings here. We don't want mixer tracks. Okay. This is only if you guys have like a big session of different sounds and you want every single sound exported out. For now, we just want this one loop exported. Another thing people forget to turn off is enable master effects. Most of the time, you don't want to use a master chain unless you have a very specific thing that you're doing that's going to add a style to the sound, but you definitely don't want limiters and all this stuff on your loops, unless it's the master of a multi-track session. If you don't know what that means, then you don't need to be using this. So we're going to turn that off, because again, you don't want to squash the loop to death and then the end user can't do anything to the loop. Okay. We do want insert effects though. So let's just start. All right, so now that's complete. You guys can see that it chopped off the sample right perfectly at the 16 bar mark. If the sample was left as like leave remainder, it will look something like hold on, let me turn this on. It would look something like this. It would just have a random tail, and it's impossible to know like where the sample starts and where it ends if you guys leave that tail in. So that's what it would look like if you didn't use cut remainder. Okay, so now we have it. So the next step, I'm kind of jumping around here, but the next step is how to label this stuff. So let's double click. We're going to right click, edit in audio editor. We're going to get rid of any loop markers. We're going to right click, delete that. We're going to right click where it says title, and let's name this. And here's what I would recommend you guys name it as: the loop name. In this case, we're going to put an arbitrary loop name, a hyphen or an underscore. It's probably more computer friendly. So let's put an underscore. And then we want the key. So the key was F minor. And then we're going to put underscore. The BPM is 91 BPM. And then underscore. And then we're going to put our name. In this case, BusyWorks Beats. I try to keep it one word. If you have to separate words, use again underscores. Okay. And then we can put our website here under the comments. That will be in the metadata. I am recording at what's called 48 kilohertz. You guys don't need to mirror what my settings here at 48 kilohertz. It's only because I'm on a Mac that I use 48 kilohertz. They kind of built the Mac to have to use that for the most part, even though we don't have to use it. Format 32-bit stereo. And again, hit accept. Okay, so now we have that. Make sure your format says 32-bit. Okay, just double check, make sure all this is the same. We're going to go to the top left now and save sample as. We're going to drag this to a desktop and let's put it under, let's just make a new folder. Let's call it, tutorial sample pack. Okay, so now we have a tutorial sample pack. We're going to mark, this part is up to you guys, but I'd like to organize. So in this sample pack, I'm going to have a folder that says melody loops. In the melody loop folder, I'm going to have another folder, unless I have like 10 loops, I'll just throw them all in here. But if I have more than 10, we want to categorize the loops. So what kind of loop is this? It's a dark hip hop. So let's just type hip hop as the genre. And now we're in the hip hop folder and we're going to save our loop here. Why is that important? Is because we want the final product to already be organized so that people don't have to triple think in order to use our stuff. Now, one thing this process did was it delayed my sample. I'm not sure why it delayed the sample, however, because I'm not using any plugins outside of Fruity Reverb. So for whatever reason, it added this delay. Just keep in mind this delay can hinder some folks. In this case, it's not going to hinder anything, but it will be offbeat if I were to drag and drop. So one way we can fix this is grab the slip tool in the playlist. We can come over here, hit Alt, left click, and drag it. So all this, I don't know if you guys can see, but there's a flat line right there. So basically you want to get rid of that flat line. Just hit Alt, left click, and drag. Again, I don't know why FL renders out of pause. There was no plugins used, so I'm not sure why it does that. Okay, and then you would re-render that accordingly by right-clicking Consolidate Track from Track Start, and then do all the steps. Or you could double-click in here, right-click, Edit in Audio Editor, get rid of the loop again, and zoom in on the beginning portion here. Go to Snap to Grid, snap to zero crossings, highlight just the very beginning, and hit Control X or Delete if you're on PC, and that will get rid of that time gap. But again, it will throw off the ending timing of your sample. So this is a flaw in FL Studio because again, I didn't have any plugins outside of stock plugins. So there's no real reason to have latency. Okay. Maybe it's these plugins causing latency. Okay. But that's why that's there. Okay. So that's called plugin delay compensation. You guys don't have to worry about that. I know I kind of went really far ahead. So now let's come back to our itinerary and let's build a rhythm. So we're going to use pre-made rhythms because I already have these mapped out at busyworksbeats.com in the beatmaker blueprint. If you go to busyworksbeats.com slash, I believe it's beatmaker. So here we have loops. Let's go to drum kits. Where's our loops at? It's been a minute since I used these, so give me a second. I think it is, if I'm not mistaken, I thought it was in there. Maybe it's the Ultimate Producer Stash. Let's go to the Ultimate Producer Stash. I stand corrected. Okay, and let's go to hip hop. And we're just gonna match. Okay, so we want some drum loops. So this is pretty modern, okay? 97 BPM, let's drag that in. So now we're not trying to overcomplicate the rhythm. Again, the reason we're using rhythm is so that we have the perspective of how the end user will use our loops. We don't want them to have to work super hard to come up with drum star loops. So it's best you guys kind of get a pocket that is a universal pocket and build around that pocket. Okay, so now we need a vibe for this. So let me make sure I'm following all my stuff. So this drum loop feels very happy. So if I use a minor scale, it's not going to match the energy of this type of track. I'll show you guys what that would sound like. Dark minor chords. All right, so when I was going upward, that creates happiness. Going down your scales creates a sadness. So I went upward the first time, even though it was starting off on D minor. That created a happier vibe. It actually sounded good. But okay. So scales have moods. And I teach this in my music theory magic course at busyworksbeats.com slash music theory magic. I go way, 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 way deeper into this. I go over intervallic resolution, key modulation, modal interchange, 251, going out of key on purpose. It's so much stuff in that course. But to make it simple for today, just think minor scales are more introspective and I'll say darker, okay? Even though it's a generalization, that's not true. Major scales are like happier, brighter sounding, okay? Usually speaking, if you go up your keyboard, you're gonna create a happier sound. When you go down your keyboard, you create a sadder sound. That's just the general thing about making melodies and stuff. Okay, so E minor and F minor are going to be your darkest scales. E minor is the most depressing scale there is, and then you have F minor, which is more of a rebellious type of scale. Okay, scales have moods underneath, and we can go deeper, but I cover that in my course in much more depth. Okay, so what we're going to do is figure out what kind of vibe are we getting off this loop. It's a happier vibe, so instead of a different way to think about it is every minor scale has a relative major. If you don't understand what that means, open up the plugin called Scalar. And where'd it go? Where did our Scalar plugin go? Here it is. So in Scalar, even if we're in F minor, the relative major of that is A flat major. I'll teach you guys how to understand the difference, but we can't cover too much here. So here's the minor scale. Let's say we're in F minor. If you're in a minor scale, think of it as sad. Okay, so take the root note and go up 3 notes until you get the happiness. So take the root note and count up 3 notes. 1, 2, 3. Now we're at A flat. And this will be our major scale starting at A flat. And that's the relative major scale for F minor. Okay, now if we were in, let's just go to a random key. If let's say the key was A major, in order to figure out the relative minor, we're going to take the tonic or the root note of A major, which is A, and then we're going to go down to sadness. Okay, down 3 notes. So take the tonic, count down 3. 1, 2, 3. Start here and then make your minor scale. So that's how you go between major and minor. So basically what I'm telling the beginners is that every minor scale has an equal and opposite major scale. So you can go from the dark side of the scale to the light side. It's all interchangeable. And I'm saying that to say we could still write in quote unquote F minor, but from the A flat perspective. So that would make it a major perspective. Okay. So that's what I'm trying to tell you guys. So I go way deeper in the course. It's just a lot to teach. So for now, we're just going to vibe and find notes that sound good. And also we need to find sounds that match this type of sound. It's a very rhythmic, short sound. I wouldn't use super long sounds with this. Okay, so again, I'm going to start with piano and then map out scales and moods. And then we're going to cover sound selection here. So here I'm going to go a little bit deeper. Let's record some ideas here. Of course, I wrap my headphones on my chair. All right, so let's practice and then we'll record. I'm thinking seventh chords, if anything. So this is more of like a Jay-Z type, deep piano type of approach. Okay, so just ideas to get started. We could build around that harmony. So again, melody comes in 4 layers. The top line, usually the highest frequency in your melody. The harmony section, which is like the glue in between. The contrast layer, which is the low end most of the time. It's supposed to contrast the top line and movement or frequency content. And then we have the rhythm section. So because we started with the rhythm, now I'm building in the harmony. Now it's come up with the top line. And sound selection here, because the drums are very tribal sounding, we can look at more world-like ethnic, I'll say, sounds. So you're going to look, for example, if this was a plugin, you would look up the Roland SRX series. I believe it's called World. I think I have it, but I'm not sure if it's going to load up. SRX, where is it at? World. Again, if I'm not signed in, I'm not going to waste my time trying to sign in. But again, Roland's going to be the best company, in my opinion, for you guys. The Roland Cloud, because they have real keyboard sounds in plugin form. Okay, whereas other companies don't really have that sound. Okay. Let's come up with other sounds on our keyboard to match that type of vibe, very ethnic vibe. Okay, so we're just gonna add little flares here and there with the flute. So just record and then we'll cut out the stuff we don't want. Okay, so again, I'm trying not to cover everything about everything about everything, but let's add some reverb here. With Valhalla, where we at? Valhalla, vintage verb. I like it on the now setting. Just gonna keep it at 100%. Let's kind of push it to the background, even though it's a top line, it's in the background. Now I'm gonna go in and add a contrast layer or a bass line. Contrast does not always mean bass line. It just means opposite of whatever the top line's doing. So let's pick a different sound here. Now, for this type of vibe, usually the ear is attuned to like a triangle type bass, very smooth bass, or a log drum type bass. So again, we don't have 17 hours to go through every sound that's on the planet. You guys can go to Fruity DX10 and look at the preset called log drum. This is like used for Afro stuff. So we might add that during the rhythm, but for now, turn it up a little bit here. Let's add some rhythm in here. Okay, so we covered Trecio in many other videos. Again, I'm trying not to cover everything about everything about everything about everything because it's too much to teach you guys all in one video. But there's a pattern called Trecio, which is very ubiquitous, and it's used in hip hop all the time. So it's Trecio, Trecio, like that. It's not triplets. Triplets is 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3. Trecio is Trecio, Trecio, like that. So we're gonna delay the sound a little bit with the wrench tool, so it fits in that timing pocket. So if you guys can't hear tone, pull it up an octave or two, hit Control up. Now it's gonna fix any tones that are just like right here. I can hear the notes. It doesn't really matter the notes because they're so short. Okay, we're gonna pull these down 2 octaves. Okay, we're gonna pull it down 2 octaves, Control down. Not mandatory to add that, but I'm just showing you guys different bass options so that you don't overfill this type of beat. Now so that's one thing we could do is add bass for the user, but most of the time you want to stay away from adding bass because that's where the users are going to want to add their own bass most of the time. Unless it's like a really hard bass, like a soul bass or something like that. Let's record some kind of triangle bass here. Let's record. So again, I'm not gonna like over obsess. If you guys need help with bass, I have a course about this at busyworksbeats.com/music theory essentials. In short, we're playing what's called the tonic. In this case, A. We're going to D, which is technically if A was the fifth, D would be the tonic. And then we're just going back up an octave. Okay, so there's no rhyme or reason. We're just playing rhythm in that case. Now, keep in mind, again, those 4 layers. If you try to do too much rhythm with the bass, now we're fighting with the initial rhythm section, which is the drums. And this is where a lot of producers kind of mess up too, is they have too many rhythms contrasting against each other. So we're going to leave the flaws in there. Now we have that groove. Again, usually I don't add bass into a loop because the user wants to do that. So we have to keep in mind what the user wants to do. No, we're not sending them a finished beat and all they do is add a hi-hat. That's not fun. So we have to think from the perspective of somebody who would buy you guys' loops, okay? So we covered a lot, so I'm just gonna move to the next concept, which is ear candy. So the ear, in short, needs movement to change over time. We're just gonna add frequency filters, or frequency sweepers, I should say, filter movements, different things that catch the ear over time. Usually it's just musical changes, but it can also be sounds that kind of go whoosh, stuff like that. So I'm gonna go through my keyboard to look for sounds like that. And there's no magic plugin, there's no magic kit. It's just stuff that you guys find. Foley's a great way to do this as well because it's very transient. Things with transients capture the ear as well. So let's add some more sounds in here. So here we're not doing much to capture the ear. It's more so just a layering of harmony. Let's record that in. Playing simple voices in the root note of A. Let's add a really high pitched one. Okay, so the main ear catching thing I did there was simply to go up in a crazy high octave, which is not, most instruments don't hit that octave. So let's turn that down in volume so it's not super jarring. That would be our ear catching thing for this beat. Okay, so let's say you guys want to make like funk or some kind of down south type sound. What we want to do here is go to options. Or tools, pardon me, go to macros, switch all audio clips to stretch mode. What this does is it converts every single audio clip into a stretchable thing. Now we're going to go to tools, go back to macros, switch all audio clips to resample mode. So basically what we did on each file is we gave it a value for this knob here. Okay, before it had no value, now it has an automatic value. So now if I change the BPM, it will change the actual tone of those samples. So let's speed it up, see what it would sound like. As a house remix, a disco remix. So that's the technique most people don't know about. Forgot the initial BPM we were even at. I don't remember. Let's just put it at 95. Okay, so now that it's on the thing. 97 was our original. So now that we understand that, another way to kind of spice up your loop is to treat that as if it's an entire song and then run it through as if we're starting from scratch again. So what we'll do is group all our sounds in the mixer. We're going to go to our channel rack, switch this to all. Just double click everything. If it's not in the mixer, hit Control L. So now everything is mapped into the mixer. We want to find our Fruity Convolver channel, which is on channel 9. Okay, so let's mark this as reverb. It is a little messy in my thing, but everything starts from pretty much track 10. So we're going to hit Control, highlight all these tracks up until like 23. We're going to find channel 10. Was it channel 9? Okay, 10. Okay. And then find your reverb and then right click route to this track only. So all those sounds are going to go through this reverb. What I loaded up while the track was playing was an impulse response. So impulse response are samples of gear, environments, different things like that. And so in the Fruity Convolver, I loaded up a Bricasti M7 impulse response, which you guys can get for free on the internet from various people. And we have this set to where basically you're running through like a $5,000 reverb with us, basically. Okay, so what we're going to do is mess with the dry level and mess with the wet level. Now, we'll make everything sound a lot bigger. So the drums might be a little too heavy for this, so let's take out the drums. Because again, those drums are just a placeholder. Now, I put it on a hall reverb, which is a very big reverb. So if I turn the dry level down, we're just going to hear the reverb. But now we basically pulled everything in as a new sample doing this. And then we can turn the dry level up to blend in the original signal. So this kind of is a cheat code in the way that people record their room, because not everybody's room is like easily doable to do that. Plus you need speakers and you need a microphone. It's too much stuff. So I'd recommend you guys to start with impulse responses. These are basically samples of people's rooms or gear. And you could run your sounds through their room using impulse responses. It takes a lot of the hard work out of it. Now we're just going to blend this in with the wet level. Now, again, this is a very big reverb. It's not a small reverb. So it's going to be very big and a long tail reverb. But that way you guys don't have to sit here and record your microphone of your room and then like play back your audio. That's kind of an archaic way to do it, in my opinion. And again, there's different environments. We just loaded up the hall reverb. Let's go to a different folder and let's see what else they have. Okay, so we want to look for either plates or small rooms. So let's do rooms in this case. Actually, let's do rooms 1. And let's look at these different rooms. So again, I don't know what these rooms are. Okay, so we want the tail of the reverb, not the head. The head is a very quick transient. The tail is the majority of the reverb. So if I crank this up, it's going to sound like my sound came from that room. Like we're playing it over some speakers. But these are high quality recordings of different environments. Okay, so let's blend that sound in with the original. So now it feels like it's in a space. Okay, so what we're doing is we're adding a space or an environment to our sound. That's what we're doing. Okay, now some people talk about texture and sound effects. Personally, I don't like vinyl static and all this type of sound effect stuff always on my track because some people just don't prefer that. I'd rather to keep those samples separate and let people layer them in. If you guys prefer to do that though, there's static we could add. There's like cricket sounds we could add. Sound Oracle has some, I believe some static in one of his kits. Let me see if I can find it though. If not, we're not going to obsess. Forget which kit. He has so many kits, I forgot which one it was. I think here it is. So his digital wax bundle has some album vinyl crackle. So we could add that in the background and we could also run it through that same reverb to get it sounding like we came through that same room. What channel was that? 9. So we could run this directly through the reverb. So now it feels like it's in the room. Then we can turn it down so it's not like too ear grabbing. And just copy and paste, hit Control B all the way through your track. Very subtle. Another thing people usually do is do like stream recordings of rain. Again, this doesn't apply to everything. Keep in mind, reverb itself is a texture because now you're picking up harmonics of the room at different frequencies. So you don't always need these like aggressive sound effects. But that's one way to make it sound like it's from a record, is adding final crackle. In this case, I don't think we need it. Okay, the reverb is enough. And now we can go back in and create more over top of the loop that we just created. So we're sampling ourselves. Okay, so now let's turn this into a darker vibe. So I'm going to move a little bit quicker here because we don't want to go down too many rabbit holes. Let's just call this dark, and we're going to highlight. We're just going to take that reverb channel because it has everything routed there. We're going to let me see if I can route it. Okay, that track was routed there. So let's do this again. We're going to take the reverb and we're going to send that directly to the dark channel. So again, I'm showing you guys little things here and there because, again, teaching you everything about everything is literally impossible. So I got to kind of jump around to ideas. Here's the Pitch Shifter by Kilohearts. I recommend you guys download their Kilohearts Essentials bundle. They have a really good free plugin suite called the Kilohearts Essentials. So we're going to pull this down -3 semitones, and this will take a major key and make it sound darker, even though we wrote in major, because again, that relative minor scale that we talked about earlier. Now let's add a plugin. Hopefully this does not crash FL. All right, I'm hoping it doesn't. It's called Crystallizer. Sometimes my computer crashes loading this up. It's a Crystallizer plugin, and basically we're going to add a delay, which has a pitch shifting function. So it's going to delay the sound and pitch it up 1200 cents, which is 1 octave. And they can blend in the mix level here. Also, it reverses the grains, so it reverses the sound. And also we want a little more reverb. So let's add our Fruity Convolver. So we have a room reverb. Then I'm going to load up a long tail hall reverb this time. So now it feels like it's in a bigger room. Remember, reverb is a texture. And remember, we can also change the tone by slowing down the sample BPM. So we're really dark tempo area here. Now in this case, I would not run the bass. It's too much reverb. Okay, so now I'm going to build over top of this as if it's a whole new sample. So we're in a new key now. We're not in F minor anymore. We're in D minor. Okay, so I'm going to move faster here, guys, because again, you guys get the general concepts here. I don't want to overkill. And then we're going to move into a new idea and start from scratch. So after this point, we're going to be covering styles more than like technique or like concepts. And this video is at 44 minutes, so I got to hurry up here. Okay, so let's make a D minor, and I might separate this in different videos actually after this one. Let's just finish out this loop, and let's make it, now we're down 3 keys, which is D minor. We're going to start with piano. I forgot something. It feels like we're not in D minor anymore. There were so many changes in the audio. I don't know. I'm just going to go by ear here. But I said D minor, but it looks like we're in one of these black notes. gonna get rid of some of that piano because it's eating up a lot of space. Okay, so we're gonna move a little bit quicker through these ideas. Again, these are just, we're gonna have to take stuff away. And again, remember this stuff is not going through the proper. I want to hear what it sounds like through the reverb. I put it on the wrong channel. Also, this will pitch it down, so it's gonna sound. I just wanted to hear what it sounds like through the stuff. So I reversed the flute. So now I'm just doing whatever comes to mind. There's no rhyme or reason to what I'm doing here. Let's add a delay to our flute. Let's time stretch this piano. Again, there's no like formula that I'm following here. We're just basically thinking like a sound designer at this point. Let's reverse the piano just to see. I'm gonna send it to a reverb. I feel like we already have a reverb somewhere in here. At channel 5. So it's the reverb. Now I'm leveraging all those things we have before. I'm looking for that reverb that pushed the sound to the back, which is on channel 3. So now it's becoming like a picture as opposed to like this basic composition. Okay, so it sounds way different than where we started. Again, the best part is probably those first 8 bars because we didn't repeat it. So now what I can hear is like cinematic horns. So let's add some horns in here. Like, let's add some of those. It's not a realistic horn because you would run out of breath before you could hold a note that long. But we're just going to hold that note. And then we're going to tuck that sound to the back. Probably going to run it through reverb. The thing is, I would run it through channel, what is this? Channel 9? Or no, channel, yeah, 9. But the thing is, it's going to go to that dark effect, which is going to pitch it down 3. So to prevent, here's what I'll do. I'll pitch this up 300 cents so that by the time I send it to channel 9, it will be pitched down 3 cents and be its same pitch. but it will have artifacts though. Okay, so now it just needs that thing that kind of stands out, and this is where bass can come into play. So hopefully you guys can see how all this stacks up. Okay, so now we're going into the 80s. We might as well give it like that final 80s touch with some high-end bell of some sort, and then we'll kind of wrap this up. So now we're getting more in the Weeknd's bag here. And we turn a basic piano idea into like this smeared new thing, and that's what you guys can do as loop makers once you kind of apply all these techniques. But most people don't want to learn the techniques because they're very subtle techniques, but it's not about the subtleties, it's when you add all this stuff up. Now we can stack those 80s sounds. I'll try to add like an electric guitar, but I'm not the greatest on the solo stuff. not the greatest freestyler with the improv guitar because of all the pitch bends, but I think there's some stuff in there. So we're gonna end. This video is literally an hour, which is crazy to think. Just gonna tuck that guitar in the back. Let's play it one more time and then we'll wrap this. Okay, so with more time and more ideas, you guys can really like lock that down. I'm going to end this video now because it's been an hour. And so in the next, if you guys want part 2, part 3, part 4, just let me know what genres you guys want me to cover in the comments below, and then we'll do that series next. We'll do that part next in the series is what I meant to say. If you're new here, subscribe, like this video, share with a friend. And if you want to learn more music theory, go to busyworksbeats.com/music theory essentials. That's where all my teachings are based off of. And if you want to go into advanced music theory, look up busyworksbeats.com/music theory magic. That's the course that's going to take you into the advanced music theory for music producers. And what else is there to teach you guys? I mean, just go to busyworksbeats.com/premium. We have over 68 music production courses. Learn how to make beats like the pros. Catch you guys on the other side. Peace.